in the next few months to the end of the year, I want to reiterate some of the guiding principles as to why we're making those decisions. And I would love to hear from you how you are going and any questions or concerns that you might have about where we are with things in the future. And lastly, I want to give some time to pray. We'll finish the series on the fruit of the Spirit. We're going to meet 4 or 5 weeks on what is church. I wish that we had done that series before we went into the lockdown and isolation. Other things have pressed upon us that we were unable to. I think it's important to remind ourselves and be governed by what God says about who we are and why we exist. Can we do church not in person? Is virtual church meeting through teleconferencing and participation through YouTube church? Somebody asked me during the week, what are we doing? I can't remember who it was. What are we doing about Holy Communion in a virtual environment? Some churches, evangelical churches, have decided to not have communion in this period. We have taken a different view. But what is the theology? What is the in-principle thinking that has led us to those conclusions? I think in some respect we've sort of ran ahead and done things without sufficient theological reflection on some of these things. And that's always dangerous, I think, and damaging in the long term. So as things progress, and it's not likely that things are more certain or less fluid, we've been pressed to keep making decisions in a very reactionary way. And if we don't recapture our principles and the deep theology involved, grounding our decisions in that, at the same time, having a deep awareness of the context in which we are doing ministry, I think we could very easily get lost. So that's something by way of a preface as to some of the things that we have been wrestling with as leadership. As you know, things are changing, things are fluid. We almost have to make decisions or look to make a decision on almost a daily basis. There are different decisions that have been made, even in Sydney. Some of my good friends and their churches have said that they will not meet in person. They are suspending that indefinitely. Some are saying they are delaying the decision to do in-person church until September, to wait until things settle down a little bit. We have decided that we will keep pressing with the in-person church on the 8th of August, so that's in 2 weeks' time, on a Saturday, as well as the 9th. So as you know, we are planning to change our congregations a little bit. There will be 2 English congregations, but 1 new one on Sunday afternoon. There will be 2 new Cantonese, there's 1 new Cantonese congregation, 1 on Saturday afternoon, just in case the messaging and communication got a little bit confused. The Cantonese congregation on Saturday afternoon is going to be 3 o'clock, and the English congregation on a Sunday afternoon is going to be 4 o'clock. So 3 o'clock Some of those decisions were driven by necessity. As we planned these things, we try to take into account the government restrictions that have been communicated to us along the time. And as you know, the restrictions are such that we could not fit, for example, the whole of the Cantonese congregation in one space. So those, and then what happened was we were taking feedback on an informal basis from focus groups as to what are the time slots that are most suitable for people, most workable, and on that basis, those are the decisions that we've come to. So we have talked to people. We may not have talked to everyone, and we certainly didn't have a town hall meeting. I don't think that would be a good way to actually make our decisions and process information. So we didn't pursue that, but we did go through the process of talking to different people. That's what's going to happen on the 8th and the 9th. But what we've decided to do is to continue online church. Definitely through broadcasting on our website. So if you have participated in that, that's through a streaming broadcasting function on YouTube. And as you would have been aware, over the last 4 months, we have decided not only to do broadcasting, but to meet together through teleconferencing platform, which is Zoom. And again, we have made the decision different to many other churches because we were concerned about the horizontal interaction between people. It is almost impossible in that context to have horizontal interaction if we were just showing a video on YouTube. And we were deeply aware of that at the commencement of the isolation. This is why we've gone through the very the investment into the Zoom platform. And of course, given the period that we've gone through in 4 months, you yourself have experienced the advantages and disadvantages of doing church in that way. And we will continue to assess, based on our learnings and learnings from other churches, whether there are other things that we could do from the 8th of August. But one way or another, we will continue to broadcast church just so that people can have access through to the Word of God in this community. In what format, I think I still need to work that through with the staff in a specific way. The reason why we are continuing broadcasting church is that we recognise that there is a growing concern and unease about the rate of infection. And we don't want to put people at risk. And we want to ensure that there is a way of doing church for people who, for a range of reasons, need to be at home. This is why we have made the decision both to pursue in-person church with the full program, as well as an online presence in a way that we haven't quite, that we're still working out. Youth ministry, as you know, has commenced prior to Adult Church, and we will keep conducting youth ministry in person as long as we can. And for children ministry, which we'll come to in a moment, we will also conduct in-person children ministry as long as we do in-person adult church. So we cannot envisage a situation where, for example, as some churches are doing in-person children ministry but not adult church. So, so the two go together. We will in the fluidity of the situation, we may make a decision to stop in-person ministry once again. Let's go one step. The reason why we're persisting with in-person ministry is several folds. One is some of our members are really not doing very well with the virtual church environment. And so I think it's vitally important for those people that we have an in-person option for that. The second reason, driver for that decision is I think it's very, very difficult to keep making the decision to meet in person, not in person, not in person. There isn't, as far as I can tell, a definite trigger point by which we can say now it's okay to do it in person. As long as there is a threat of the virus in this world, there is always the possibility of another wave, another flare-up. And the oscillation of the in-person, not in-person, I think is actually emotionally tiring for people. I think that we need to work out how we can exercise our ministry and mission, given some degree of stability. This is one of the reasons why we've decided to keep pressing on with in-person church. The type of circumstances which will trigger a decision to stop in-person church is obviously if the health authorities and the diocesan authorities are mandating it, obviously. The second possibility is if there is some strong medical opinion that this is what we should do. So I'm not sure if you're aware, we have formed since the beginning, just prior to lockdown, a team, a task force, making up of both staff as well as people who have knowledge in this area. So one of the blessings that we have is that we do have a specialist, I can't even say that word, infectious disease specialist, epidemiologist. So we're drawing on the expertise and opinion on advising us what's. So it could well be that even though government and diocesan authority do not mandate stopping this person, we will come to that conclusion based on the safety and well-being of those who are coming and beyond. Obviously, if there is a confirmed case of coronavirus in our midst, that will be a trigger point as to how long we're going to lock down that instance. We'll have to take that advice on that. So those are some of the reasons and some of the processes we go through. I already talked for about 10 minutes. I'll just mention one other thing. Yeah. It's I'm getting old, so I repeat my story. So I'm going to tell this story. Hopefully, I haven't said it like 10 million times. I was reading a book that was recounting what an experienced neurosurgeon was saying to an inexperienced novice neurosurgeon. And the conversation went something like this. I think this is true when they do neurosurgery. The person is actually awake when they're doing it. Is that right? Yes? No. And in this instance, it was. And the experienced surgeon was saying to the inexperienced surgeon, you only have like 1 minute or 2 minutes before the patient will start to experience some level of discomfort. So the time is short. Therefore, slow down. It's counterintuitive. When things are pressing in on us with lots of demands, the discipline to exercise, particularly good decision making, in fact, is to actually slow down. To remind ourselves why we do things, driven by principle, but having a great awareness, as I said, the context in which we actually operate in. So for all of us who are being pressed to actually make urgent decisions with great uncertainty, we have to exercise a great discipline to find the time and the space to consider things in principle and for the longer term. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about a lot is how do we make decisions with uncertainty and urgency so that we can continue to pursue our mission and our strategies. Are our strategies no longer relevant in this new context? Should we be changing our mission? If the ministry environment in which we are operating is changing and continue to change, what is it that we need to do and adapt that actually fits the new environment? And what is it that we must not stop doing? The mission for our church, as well as all churches, is to make disciples of the nations. We are to love our neighbours as ourselves. We are to glorify God through those two things. I don't believe that has changed, even with the pandemic. And we need to ask the question, well, how are we doing in making disciples of the nations and in loving our neighbours, even though the way that we are doing things is different? Our strategic priority after a period of time that we have set ourselves for in the context that we are in ministry are fourfold. We need to grow as a church to become a welcoming church, a hospitable church. We want to be a church where our relationships are genuinely characterized by a Christ-likeness. There's a godly element in the way we relate to one another. We want to be a church where the culture, the way we do things around here, is one of service. Willing, joyful service. Grace filled. So we want to be a church where we are looking out to the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. Has our strategic priorities changed? I don't believe it has. I could be wrong. I'd love to hear from you. Those are still the interim guiding principle for our decision. So you take, for example, the decision to do in-person church or to not do in-person church. One of the guiding principles is actually our godly relationships and the love of neighbour. If there's a risk that we are infecting other people, then the loving thing to do is to eliminate that risk. Yeah? So that's just one of many examples where we try to be guided by the principles of our mission as well as our strategy or vision in making our decisions. And as we embark into a new way of doing church in uncertainty, new congregations, let me remind us that those are still the things that we're striving for. So if you plan to join a new congregation, or if you plan to stay to participate through in-person church, I want to encourage you to think through both our mission and our vision. how do you make disciples in this period? How do you foster deep family relationships? How do you welcome those from the outside? How do we reach out to the world with the gospel of Jesus? So the decision isn't just for convenience. 9:30 church is too full, so I have no choice but to join the afternoon church. Or all my friends are going to Saturday church, so I'm going to go to Saturday church as well too. And these new congregations or existing congregations, well, not much needs to change, right? We're just going to read the Bible, organise people praying, have music, and Bob's your uncle. I want to say, if we do that, then we will be lost. If there is a new congregation on Saturday night or Sunday afternoon, I want those of you who are part of that to commit yourselves to, I'm going to be part of a ministry that everyone who comes through will feel welcome. I'm going to identify things that we're actually doing or have been doing that are making people feel unwelcome. We're going to change that. Here's an opportunity to do it. For those of you who may know people who are not coming in person, it is a significant challenge to have godly relationships with so many people because it requires you to make extra effort to reach out to people. So it's actually harder, I think, to be church when we're not impossible, but it does require you to resolve that, yep, I'm going to do this. So as we conclude this part, let me encourage you to look at what God has placed before us and what we're planning to do over the next little while as opportunity to reshape our ministry so that we can pursue the priorities and focus that God has placed in our hearts. I could go on to talk about the plans for children's ministry and youth ministry, and we are undertaking significant differences, but not all of you are parents. There's only one, and Henry kind of heard it a million times. And I can assure him that every day, if he were to talk to me, something has changed. And youth ministry, I've spoken to the youth team about that. So I'm going to stop talking at you and give you an opportunity to ask questions or to give us feedback. I don't know how we're going to go with one microphone.
There's the orange one at the back.
People spitting into it. Okay. So we always have to wipe down every time someone uses it. I'll hold it for this one. Oh, there's a question.
Was there a creation program? Or,
Okay. So the question is, will there be a creation program? And the answer is no and yes. There will not be a dedicated creation program on Saturday or on Sunday afternoon, but there will be a creation program on Sunday morning from 9:30 and 11 o'clock. For the new time slots, one of the challenges that we are anticipating is human resource. We just don't have the resource to replicate Sunday morning ministry. And so we are taking our learnings from our core generation service and the vision of that, and we are hopefully exciting people who are part of the new congregation to think about how to include little kids as well as their parents and parents. Thanks, Mike.
Hi, Brian, and everybody. I'm not sure just what I want to say here. I think I want to say how much we all appreciate what everyone has done in terms of moving difficult furniture in the church, in terms of organising the Zoom Sunday services and just turning everything upside down. It's been a huge, huge challenge. Now that we're 4 months into it, I think we need to have a look at what we can do that might work better. And I don't want to be critical, but I looked at the website yesterday. This meeting got mentioned halfway down. It said we weren't having any Zoom after the 9th of August, but it's not up to date. It's 3 weeks out of date at least. And I think if we want to communicate when we can't see people in person, we have to make sure the website is up to date, and we have to think of other ways of communicating. I know a lot of people are on WhatsApp, but I'm not. I am on email, and I think that there could be a huge number of congregations who are on email. So I'd like to suggest that we work out some sort of a bulletin that we can email and WhatsApp and whatever, so that people can get it. So it's not a question, sorry. But they're just a few of my thoughts.
Thank you, and I apologise if communication is not done as well as it could. That's actually one of the interesting learnings that we've had at the very, very beginning of the process. We looked at other churches and what they've done. So let me give you an example of what St. Barnabas looked like. So we were looking at what they were a bit of ahead of the curve with a number of different things. Just prior to the lockdown, they made a decision to move everyone to the one communication platform. Okay? It wasn't email, it wasn't WhatsApp. It's a third-party program called I can't remember. Hang on. So it wasn't one of the well-known popular ones that we can read. So they moved everyone. This is like 700-800 people on one platform. Okay? Because they knew, as we did, that communication in this context, in this environment, is going to be vitally important. They were able to do it in a very, very short time. In fact, it's like 1 week that they were able to do it. It is unique. We're not like that in the sense that it is a majority student congregation. So people are technologically familiar and quite adaptable to change. And I did ask that question at the very beginning, right? For the sake of communication, because things are changing, we need to have a reliable way of communicating. Is it possible to actually find one platform where we can actually do this? And the answers were firmly no. Even between different congregations, there are different preferences on communication. Even when we actually got, this is teams of leaders actually commit to one, they don't actually check the communication through that. So at the end, what we have as a church is basically 6 or 7 different platforms of communication. Right? It's not just WhatsApp. It's not just on paper. It's not just WeChat. It's not just email. It's not just Facebook. And it's not just website. Right? So for every piece of information that we need to communicate, the answer that was given to me is, the only way to do it is to repeat it all. Okay? And even then, people won't get it. And so we've got to repeat and repeat and repeat. There is an inefficiency about the way of doing things. Right? I admit. So when you set up a website, it's just one of many different communication platforms. If there were one way that we can actually make communication efficient, that would be wonderful. If it's simply that we email people and somehow the message will get through, we'll do it tomorrow. Okay? So the town hall meeting was included in the order of service for almost the last 3 or 4 weeks. Okay? So the order of service is sent out via WhatsApp immediately, and it's posted on Facebook. It's hit and miss with the website. It's not always posted on. As far as I know, the meeting was announced every Sunday in all 3 congregations for the last few weeks. Not disagreeing with you. I'm affirming the observations that communication needs to improve. I'm very open to any suggestion given the context that we have. As I said, I'd love to do what the environments have done, move everyone onto one platform. Okay. Down the back, the young lady.
So you mentioned that due to limited resources, all the different services aren't going to look like on normal Sundays. Do we have an idea of what it would look like between the different groups? So what I mean by that is, to what extent is there like a standard structure that we should follow, or is each group entitled to, not entitled, but able to do their own thing in their own way?
Yeah, so the answer is there is great freedom and opportunity to get creative at this stage. Our theology drives us to do church in a certain way. The Word of God has to be central to what we do. The immediate context, one of the big challenges is, for example, that we can't sing. Music is a gift from God to be used for our encouragement. And for hundreds of years, we do it through singing. For the foreseeable future, we can't. What does that mean in the structure of our time together? And from my observation, I don't think any one church has got that right. So I think everyone's experimenting and learning from their experiences. What I'm saying is, the conditions is such that it forces us to rethink about how to do things. As I said before, what I want to pray will have happen is that in ordinary congregation, the priority is given to how to do the mission and our vision. So what is it that we need to do to actually be hospitable and welcoming? Let me give you an example, okay? Close to my heart. I know that there are people in our congregation who are illiterate. Now, it's not public knowledge because they're embarrassed. Having the Word of God as centered in the way that we do ministry means that it excludes everyone who can't read. That would seem to me to be not working. Let alone, there are people in our midst who are hearing impaired. We have no provision for people who are hearing impaired. What are we saying to them? This is not the church for you. I think that this is so how do we do ministry in such a way to actually ensure that people feel they are part of this community? That they should be confident to bring their friends along and they will be welcome as well too. Having the Word of God as centre to what we do actually requires us to do things differently. So I'm looking forward to actually working with whoever it is going to be responsible for to actually construct new ways of doing things. And I like experimentation. Even things like, I don't know if any of you, I suspect not because you're sitting still. If you've got something like ADHD, you're not going to be sitting there. Like, you're going to tune out after about 10 minutes. Our sermons are 20 minutes plus. Okay? So what happens is, those people can't move us sitting there, but they've actually tuned out. You know? Does that mean that we should actually break down our sermons into smaller bits? You know, so again, I don't know what the answer is. I rather be guided by what is it that we want to achieve. And still make the Word of God the very extent of what we do. So thank you for the question. Hopefully I answered. Okay. Well, it's not the final word. I'm just saying, encourage that you taking the time to actually be here and be interested. I echo Mark's reflection. I'm just so very, very thankful for people being so working so hard. Before we go into prayer, I think Catherine actually wanted me to mention a little bit what we think ought to be the focus. So to add to all of this. Okay? So over the last 4 months, what is it that we've learned? Okay? Which should shape the way that we go towards the future. So let me share with you some global data. Across America, and we've actually done a research project on this in the last 4 months. In total, the church in America shrunk by 30%. Okay? So 30% of people who normally go to church regularly every Sunday decide they're not going to go to church anymore. That seems to, our own experience and data seems to be consistent with that. 20% of people in American churches are church hopping. Maybe some of you are asking, well, why not? You can actually log on to great sermons and hear what. So 20% of American churches are attending multiple services online. The remaining stay with their own church. There's a couple of possible observations from that, which may inform what we might want to focus on in the next little while. I think that the 50% of people has to be, to some degree, our greatest priority for the next little while. People are committing to this community. They want to invest into it. the online experience may or may not be helping them to grow as disciples. It may or may not be helping them in their relationships. And so I think for the next little while, we've got to work out ways of listening to people, how we can do that better. So it's not just an online experience and in-person experience. How do we prioritize people who are kind of core to us and help them to actually have the energy to keep following Jesus and to keep going? So apart from all the numerous changes that we're making, we're not doing just the new program. We're not launching 10 new programs to do anything. In fact, we're actually strengthening what we have, because I think that that's probably what we need. So I thought I'd just mention that from some of the evidence-based learning that we've had over the last 4 months. If there are no other questions, I thought that we might break off into maybe groups, this time, 2, 3. Just commit, I guess, our plans to God. That God will use us to continue that mission that He's called us. Just a reminder to maintain physical distance of 1.5 meters. I don't know whether it means we need to shout to one another. If it is, can you make sure that you're not sitting too close to other people? So I think I'll give us about 5 minutes if you need it, and feel free to go after your prayer. But again, if you've got more questions that you want to ask something, that's one way. Thank you.